Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I foster dogs with Cross Your Paws Rescue in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the activities that I have kind of figured out as the key to my success, not only as someone who has owned dogs the entirety of her adult life, but as someone who has gotten into fostering and therefore met so many different dogs and dealt with their personalities and just really tried to find as many tools that I could possibly use to make bonding with the dog and transitioning the dog into the new space a little bit easier. And this is such a simple thing, but the benefits of it are quite profound. And I see, even in my own neighborhood and even in my own life, that there are a lot of dog owners that don't take it seriously enough. And that's walking your dog. Back in my early 20s, I was newly single. My ex-husband and I had split up. I was working a retail job in management, so I would be working long days. And before we split up, we had acquired 4 dogs together. And I say acquired because even though we didn't purchase any of them, they technically weren't adoptions. It's kind of like, hey, this dog needs a home, that dog needs a home. But I was left with 4 dogs who I loved and a somewhat demanding, as far as my schedule is concerned, job in a house all by myself. And I would come home and I would pay somebody to come let the dogs out, or my family would come let the dogs out. But I would come home after a long day and the dogs were insane. I mean, just absolutely bouncing off the walls. They were really young dogs at the time. I talk about my 15-year-old Shih Tzu, Snowball, and this was probably 14 years ago. So he was a year old and my other dogs were right around that same age. So understandably, they were crazy. And I just remember feeling like, what was I going to do? How could I handle this? Letting them out into the small fenced-in city yard that I had wasn't enough. Playing fetch wasn't enough. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I actually watched on television. I still had cable then. I watched a couple of episodes of Cesar Millan, that dog trainer that was really popular a decade ago or more. What I noticed in a lot of the episodes about what he talked about is anytime he was working with a dog or he asked the owners to work with the dog, almost all the time they ended up walking. So they would start out the training session walking. He would see how they were on a leash, or they would do the middle of the training session or whatever, but they would end up walking together. And he talked about the benefits of that and why it was so important for them to not only create that bond with their dog, but to enrich their dog. And so I started doing it with my dogs. I also hired somebody to help me do it because if I was going to be gone for 12 hours, and at one point I had a 60-mile commute one way, so I would be gone a really long time, working my butt off. And so I hired a dog walker, and my whole world changed as far as sometimes I would come home and they were still crazy, but it wasn't like well into late hours of the night. I could usually get them to calm down, and they just seemed happier and not so stir crazy. So ever since then, I have used walking the dogs as a tool for so many different things. It's kind of my go-to behavior correction. And I thought it might be a really nice thing to share because if I tell you about the ways that internet information is telling us it's beneficial, and it's been beneficial for me, maybe if you are considering rescuing a dog or you're considering getting into fostering, you might then adopt this tool for you and might have a better experience. So some of the other ways that I have used walking is I have used walking to plan for something. So right now, if we feel like we have an event coming up or we feel like we're going to be gone for, kind of an unusual period of time at an unusual period of time, or we come home and we've been out for a while and the dogs just seem nuts, our default is just to take them on a walk. It's not always a long walk. Again, Snowy is 15 years old and he has degenerative disc disease, so he can only do so much to his own chagrin because he loves walkies. We really use that as our default for just about anything. So if we have a really long day at work, we might say we need to do a walk in the morning. If we know that we're going to be going to dinner after work, we might make sure that we come home and do a walk in the evening. We just find that it's almost like a reset button for the dogs. It allows them to do what I call getting their sniffs out. And I'm going to talk about the importance of letting your dog sniff on your walk as well. So we have used walking for that tool. In working with Lauren, with Max, we have also been doing enrichment walks with him. And my understanding of it is that it gives the dog an opportunity it gives us an opportunity to evaluate the dog in different environments, like different stimuli as far as noises, smells, cars, other dogs, people, whatever. It allows us to get some of his crazy out. And so then if we do go to train him for something, he is a lot less kind of pent up and a lot less crazy. You guys heard me talk about that in the episode where I gave you the update on Max. And for Lauren, she has said to me that it's a great bonding exercise for your dog when you have this time where you're focused on them and you're spending time with them, which is so much more than just spending time playing fetch in the yard. You're really kind of doing this thing together. But I also want to talk about some of the surface level things that are out there as far as benefits are concerned. So here's kind of the list that I have found, and I'll elaborate on anything that I feel like needs any elaboration. But I think weight management coming up as the first one is so important. I've actually heard different people say that people who own dogs, they actually weigh a little bit less because if they're walking their dogs regularly, if they're the kind of owner that does that, then they're getting a little bit more consistent movement, not necessarily high intensity exercise, but movement at the very least. But as far as your dog is concerned, dogs were not a sedentary species, back when we domesticated them. They had jobs. They would roam looking for food, shelter, or to mate. And when we brought them into our home and we made them sedentary, we put weight on these animals. And by doing that, we are allowing different health problems to come up, such as diabetes, heart disease, arthritis. We're allowing those things to sort of manifest in our dogs. So even just with weight management and getting your dog some regular exercise is such a beneficial thing for both of you. Joint health, it can improve mobility, flexibility, reducing the risk of joint pain and stiffness. And so that actually takes me to another story that I have where this has been beneficial for me. And I don't share these stories hoping to bore you with them, but just like to share things that have worked for me. So back when I had my original 4 dogs, I was living in the Pittsburgh area with my husband, and I actually got laid off from a job. I am a type A personality. Getting laid off from a job does not feel like a vacation. It feels very stressful. So at that particular time, I got laid off around the spring into the summertime. So I took to hiking. There's this really great park. And if you're in the area, like the Murraysville area, I highly recommend that you check it out, but it's called Duff Park. Duff Park is great because they have like a trail that is now part of the Westmoreland Heritage Trail that runs along the creek, but they also have hiking trails, and some of them actually can get pretty steep. So I would hike the dogs there almost every single day. At a minimum, 3 days a week, I would hike the dogs there. One of the dogs that I had previously, we lost her not just last year. We lost a little girl last year. She was an American Eskimo, and she would run and sprint and do zoomies, and she would pop her patella out. So she had luxating patellas in both of her back legs. So I'm walking the dogs. I'm doing all this mostly for my mental health more than anything, but they're loving it. We're having a great time. We're hiking all the time. And I take little girl in for a regular checkup. And my vet does a physical exam, manipulates her legs, whatever. And she says, "Doesn't this dog have luxating patellas?" And I said, "Yeah, she has them in both her back legs." And the vet looked at me dead in the face and said, "Not anymore." I just, first of all, I had to have her repeat herself. And she said, "What have you been doing different?" And I just told her I've been laid off. So we've been hiking up at Duff Park a lot. And she said, "Yeah, you hiked it right out of her legs." So when they say online that hiking promotes joint health, I have seen that firsthand. And until the day little girl left us, she never had an issue with her back legs ever again. It was just something about the way that we had built up the muscle unintentionally that allowed that situation to heal itself. And it was pretty incredible to see and completely unintentional. So joint health is a very real thing, and getting them moving. I do see it in Snowball, and certainly after a really long walk, I'll sometimes give him an anti-inflammatory. But for the most part, I think doing regular walks with him has helped, in addition to other steps we're taking, has helped reduce the progression of his degenerative disc disease. In addition to joint health, it can strengthen their cardiovascular health, just like it can with us. And it can actually help with their digestion. So especially if you have a large breed dog that's prone to bloat, after a meal, it might be good to take them on a walk, get the blood flowing, and then hopefully, help continue to prevent any potential issues. As far as their brains are concerned, it does provide them with mental stimulation. I mean, I just want you to think about that for a quick second and think about your dog and sort of the intelligence level that it has and how you would compare that to other beings, i.e., children. So most of the time, if there's a toddler or a school-age child running around and they are acting insane, like they are just bouncing off the walls, and that parent goes, "Well, yeah, that makes sense. We've been inside for the last 3 days because it's been raining outside, or it's been snowing outside, or I haven't had a chance to get them outside." I've heard that the way that dogs' brains develops, that they have the intelligence of about a 4 to 5-year-old child, with the amount of words they can understand, commands they can understand, and generally the way that they behave, especially until they're seniors. So if you wouldn't blame a kid for being pent up in the house all day, not experiencing any new mental stimulation, why do we not take that same responsibility when it comes to our dogs? I mean, there are dogs, honest to God, in my neighborhood. I know the dogs exist because I hear them barking in their houses when we walk by. I never see them on walks. So those dogs, their lives are like teeny tiny, super confined. They're never learning anything new, smelling anything different, seeing anything different. And then people wonder why they go crazy when somebody comes to the house and they can't control themselves. So just think about that, like how beneficial it is for you to experience different things, to drive home from work a different direction, to do a different hobby or a different exercise, or take on a new task at work, or eat a different food than you normally eat. And just think about sort of what we're asking our dogs to endure that we don't put ourselves through, and we don't put our children through, and the people we love through. I already talked about reducing boredom, stress, and anxiety relief. I have also personally used walking dogs as a socialization tool. So I actually got that from Chrissy, who you heard a few episodes ago. And back when I reached out to her and said, "Hey, what do you feel like are going to be some of the most successful ways to have my dogs meet the foster dogs?" One of the things she said was a pack walk. Literally take your dogs out on a leash, take the foster dog out on a leash, assuming it can walk on a leash. Of course, every dog is different. Every dog's experience is different. But if they can walk on a leash, get them out in the neutral, get them in each other's sniff area without necessarily being in each other's face, and allow them to be comfortable or just being in the vicinity of one another. I've also used that with a friend of mine. She has a male gray pitty who he's one of those pitties are kind of just like this, where they get that like kind of super crazy energy where they don't know where to put it and what to do with it. And it's normally happy energy, but it can be really intense when, especially Rio's energy, her dog's name is Rio, when he meets another dog, especially like a male dog that's a little bit larger. So when she and I first started to become friends, she was like, I'd really like for him to be around more dogs, but I don't think we can just bring him in your yard and let him play. He's not going to be great with Denver, who was our big black lab. He's not going to be great with Wilson, who was our big plot hound. So what do you think we can do? What are you comfortable with? And I said, well, let's just go on pack walks together. Let's just have them near each other and get used to each other that way. And we never really got to the point where he could come in the yard and like play. But when he did see us out on a walk, he was much calmer, and it definitely allowed for socialization to be part of the conversation for him. And now she actually has a second dog that she rescued through us. And I am confident that, Rio getting more of that intentionalized socialization and my friend doing that work helped her integrate that new dog into their household. And that's going really well. So, those are some of the benefits of walking your dog. I do want to talk a little bit about the walks themselves. I do think that there are, actually, I'm not going to say I think. I know for a fact, because I've seen it myself, that there are people that kind of half-ass a walk and will be like, well, I took the dog on a walk. Meanwhile, all they did was drag their dog through a neighborhood. I cannot emphasize enough how much letting your dog sniff matters. I read somewhere one time that letting your dog sniff new smells for 15 minutes is the equivalent of walking them a mile. So if you're a busy person and you're going to use your schedule as an opportunity to say, I can't walk my dog today, then shorten the walk and let them sniff anything for as long as they want to sniff. Don't pull them away. Don't yank on their neck. They are taking in something like 1,000% more smells than we are. And their brain is having to work to process all of that information. So if you want your dog to be engaged and stimulated and work out some of that energy, let them get their sniffs out. Let them sniff, let them sniff, let them sniff. Lauren talked about it in the episode that I did with her. And she said, anytime you can get your dog to use their nose, that's better. And she said it in sort of not a throwaway way, but she said it in a way where she didn't really emphasize it because for her, that's obvious. She's really good at what she does. She knows dogs incredibly well. But I can bet that anybody that's listening has seen someone walking a dog and yanking the dog away from a sniff, or walking the dog so fast that the dog can't sniff. And I'm sure if you take your dogs on runs, if they're suited for that, I am sure when they get home, they're tired. Like, obviously, if you take the dog on a 2 or a 5 mile run, it's going to be tired. But if you want to get sort of that mental stimulation for the dog, let them freaking sniff. That's how they communicate. That's how they take in the world around them. That's how they take in information. So by doing that, you give them an opportunity to know their environment, to be able to decipher their environment and get some of their stress out. I mean, they need to be putting their nose to the ground. They need to be sniffing. They need to be processing all of that information, or you're not necessarily doing yourself any favors. So that's my soapbox about why walking is so important and why letting dogs sniff is ridiculously important. We do want to talk about one other thing. Well, maybe more than one other thing, but I want to start with one other thing. I cannot begin to tell you how much I hate retractable leashes. I hate them. I follow more than one vet on social media that also hates retractable leashes. And I've talked to my own vets, and I've had vets for years, and they hate retractable leashes. Retractable leashes are some of the most annoying and dangerous things that you can purchase for your dog. First of all, if the dog is large enough and on a retractable leash, if they pull with momentum and then all of a sudden the leash stops the pull, one, they can break the mechanism inside. So now you actually don't have any control because it's completely broken the leash. Two, how many times have we seen a video online and somebody's got a retractable leash, the dog takes off after who knows what, and the leash rips right out of your hand, right out of their hand, or pulls the person walking them completely over, and now they're injured, and the dog is running, and it's a mess, and it's a disaster. A great example of where a retractable leash would be a nightmare is Max. I mean, I walked him recently and I could see this car coming. I thought he was fine. And then all of a sudden, at like kind of the last second, he lunged himself at the car. And had he been on a retractable leash, I would not have had that ability in that instance to pull him back the way that I did with a standard like nylon leash. And he probably would have lunged himself right into the side of the car and he probably would have been fine. But still, like, why even take that risk because you want to give your dog more lead? And I get it. You want to give your dog the flexibility to go a little bit ahead of you, a little bit behind you. The leashes that I personally prefer are the ones where you have a loop at the very end of the leash, and then you have a loop very close to the clip that goes on the dog's harness or collar, because you can then grab that second loop down toward the dog and bring the dog close to you if you need to have control. But then also you can hold the end of the leash and give that dog, I don't know, what are most leashes? 10 feet, 12 feet. Maybe it's us. I'm really bad at determining lengths, and give them that space. But I cannot begin to tell you how much I despise retractable leashes. If you don't believe me, if you think I'm full of garbage, just ask your vet. Hey, do you think this retractable leash is a good idea? Hey, do you think there's a better leash option for me? I can almost guarantee you that your vet is going to have a suggestion for you. Most vets, at any vet I've ever dealt with, and I can't imagine there's many vets that are not like this, they have like 10 things on the top of their head that they wish people would do differently with their dogs, kind of basic day one stuff. And now that's actually triggering me that I need to get a vet on this podcast to talk exactly about that. But most vets are going to have like 10 things where they're like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And you're going to make this dog's life so much better. You're going to make your life so much better. But I think that we're in this world where people are so quick to leave bad reviews, so quick to go off on other people, so quick to bash them that they don't necessarily want to hand out this information if it's going to feel like a criticism. But if you ask them and you ask from a genuine place of just saying, hey, I'm just trying to do what's best for my dog. This insane person I listened to on a podcast said retractable leashes are the devil. What do you think? See what they say. I mean, maybe I'm full of it. Maybe they've gotten better in the, decades since I've held one. But just ask your vet if you don't believe me. And that's totally fine. Do what's best for you. But I do think a secure, leash to either a harness or to a collar is going to be in your dog's best interest. I know there's also a lot of back and forth just generally, and I know there specifically is like in our rescue, not back and forth, but our rescue takes a very intentional stance that harnesses are not appropriate for foster dogs. And I absolutely know why. If a dog decides to drop its head and drop its shoulders and that harness is not fitted properly, it can absolutely slip backwards out of the harness and now we have a loose foster dog. For me, harness walking has been the best because there have been situations where I have to react and pull the dog back and I don't want to pull on their neck. I also found that with Max and with our lab that we had, Denver, especially when he was young, he would pull on the leash really, hard because he just wanted to keep going and keep walking or whatever. So he wasn't like aggressive, but he was really strong. And I mentioned this before. I am not a formal trainer. I am not good at formal training. So I just wanted to something that was going to help me out where I didn't have to work to correct his behavior, but I could be lazy about it. And I found this harness online called an Easy Walk. And it's one of those harness where it kind of goes around their shoulders and then goes around the front of their chest, but the actual connection to the leash is right at their chest bone. So if they pull, the idea is that it's uncomfortable for them because they're actually like putting pressure on their chest bone. That thing worked wonders for Denver. It also does seem to be working really well for Max. He will still pull, but I can guarantee you if he was on a collar, he would be pulling a lot more. And I've recommended that for a number of people. So if you have a dog that's pulling on a leash and you haven't kind of or can't take the steps to train that dog out of that, that could potentially be a useful tool for you. Again, make sure it's fitted properly and the dog can't back themselves out of it. But yeah, harness, leash, whatever your, trick of the trade is or tool of the trade is, I recommend that. I am now starting to get much, much more bought into always having treats on walks so that I do have a reward available. And then I can correct behavior mid-walk if I need to, even with a dog like Cheese, who walks so incredibly well on a leash. It's good to have that available to me. So yeah, walking is really important. I'll kind of leave you guys with this quick little tidbit. Michael was not raised with dogs. His family, I would not say, are inherently dog people. So when we first got together and he would come and visit me for the about 11 months that we were doing long distance, he'd be like, hey, your dogs are being nuts, because I would still be at work. He's like, what should I do? I'm like, just take them for a walk. They'll be fine. And he started getting in the habit of that. So every time he would come over, if I was still at work, he would just take the dogs for a walk near my apartment that I lived in at the time. And then as we moved in together, we moved into the Monroeville house that he had together. And then now we live where we live. He will literally look at me and say, I can tell we didn't walk them today. They're insane. We should have walked them today. And I can absolutely see a difference. So I have made a believer out of him. We have absolutely paid the price with our sanity when we haven't walked them. And we don't walk them every day. Like, I am not perfect. I am not pretending to be perfect. But what I am saying is that we do try to be intentional about it. So we have an opportunity to make the dogs' lives better and make our sanity better. So if you are in a situation where you have a dog that is going stir crazy, is driving you insane, is maybe whining while you're trying to work, desperate for your attention, or if you get a new dog and you're just not sure how to bond with that dog and what the best way is to do that, I highly recommend a regular walk, couple walks a day. I think that you're going to see some things really change and be positive. So yeah, give me some feedback. If you listen to this and you do make a behavior change and you see that it's going well or it's going terrible and you want to interact with me, I would love to hear how it goes for you. So that's my soapbox. I appreciate you all listening. And so now I'm going to actually move into our foster highlight for the day. This is another dog that has been with Cross Your Paws for quite some time. His name is Betts. He also goes by Rudy. I actually don't know why he has the two names, but he is a beautiful dog. And if you do search for him on the Cross Your Paws website, look for the name Betts. That's how he is listed on the site. I'm going to go ahead and read his profile just to highlight him. And then when I release this episode, as always, I will put pictures of him on the Instagram page, but you can go to crossyourpaws.com and you can find him on there. Betts is an awesome dog and oh so handsome. He's a 60-pound, 13-month-old red heeler and possibly Pyrenees mix. By the way, I don't think it's possibly. He definitely looks like he has Pyrenees in them. He's a very smart boy and loves to work on training since he's very food motivated. He is house and crate trained. He goes 9 hours through the night without making a peep. He is a dog that prefers to have his own space. When he sees you get his food bowl ready, he immediately goes to his feeding spot and sits, waiting for permission to start eating his food. He goes and sits on his bed after being brought in from outside to get his feet wiped. He knows sit, down, stay, watch, and touch, and is learning to walk nicely on a leash. His recall is impressive. He is a Velcro dog that wants to be with you, but with respectful boundaries. He loves to be outside and active, even in the cold weather. Again, I see the Great Pyrenees, and that makes sense why. He'll be a great walking, hiking, running partner, or farm companion. Once he's gotten some exercise, he's happy to snooze on his bed. Yes, he has herding instincts, but he doesn't chase the livestock unless they start running, and he can't resist joining in the fun. He's a pretty chill guy, but kids can make him very nervous, so he is not recommended for a household with kids. An active home is a must to him, but he prefers actively unloading horses or livestock. Yes, we know that is his dream. Outdoor green space is necessary for this good old boy. He is not a city slicker. I mean, he's just a really, really pretty dog. He has like kind of that Great Pyrenees fur, and you can tell he's sort of lanky, but he has like a light brown face. And I know why they're saying red heeler, because his legs have those like red spots that heelers get on them. And he's just a really beautiful dog. They're saying he's about 13 months old. He is neutered, I believe. Yes, he is neutered. He is house trained. He's good with other dogs. He's good with cats, according to his profile. Again, if you have children, he is not the dog for you. There is another dog out there that's a better fit for you. If you have land, like they said, they think he's going to be a really great farm dog, which again, totally lines up with heeler and Great Pyrenees, especially. So if you're interested in checking Betts out, please take a look at his profile on the Cross Your Paws website. Don't forget about Wags and Wine, the fundraising event for Cross Your Paws that's happening on Friday, September 19th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. at Bella Terra Vineyards in Hunker, Pennsylvania. If you haven't already purchased your tickets, make sure to do that. They're going to be on the Cross Your Paws Facebook page, website. And if you have questions about how to obtain tickets, you can DM me on the Foster Files podcast Instagram page, or you can send me an email at thefosterfilespodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, rate, review the show. That really is very helpful, allows other people to find the show. Please feel free to send me any feedback. Try not to be a jerk about it, because there's enough jerks in this world, and I'm just trying to help and navigate this as best I can. But thank you so much for listening. For anybody that downloaded and listened today, I am really having a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you're having a good time listening. And remember, if we all save one, together we can save them all.